Let's talk today a few minutes about the strength of pop-ups. So we're going to go ahead and look at this screen and really review what this means to use pop-up screens, how it actually helps with our application and makes navigation so much easier and the ability to really capture information that much faster. So stay tuned, we're going to jump right to it. So the concept of using a pop-up screen is actually very simple to do. And as you can see here represented on your screen, this is actually an app that I have called Notes and Actions. And this Notes and Actions allows me to take all of the information from within Microsoft Office 365, information I'm dealing with on a regular basis, and drop it in to this application, which allows for a greater search capability and categorizing and cataloging information. So we're not going to go into that in this video, but what we are going to go into is the strength of using pop-outs in this scenario. So let me just jump right to one and show you exactly what we mean. So when we click here, we get into a meeting note, and although you can't really see the meeting note, I've blanked it out, but you get the idea, right? There at the top, I put in a name of the meeting note, and I'm literally sitting in a meeting with somebody talking about a specific topic. And while I'm speaking to that individual, a need to create a task comes up, because it's not uncommon in a meeting that you're going to have tasks generated from that meeting. In fact, I would submit to you that if meetings do not have any actions following them, you may want to take a closer look at whether or not that meeting is even needed. But let's not go down that hole right now. Let's just say I'm in the meeting and I want to make an assignment of a task. I'm sitting talking to the individual, and now I just want to make a task for that individual. So I quickly click on the L there, and it's going to create a task for me. Now you can see all the other ones in this category as well. They all create tasks for other people in other plans and buckets. So you can specify, and I'll show you it here in a moment, but you can specify in great detail where that information goes within your environment. So there are other videos I have. This is an overview, but there are other videos that go into the details of how to create each one of these if you're a little unclear, but I'm going to give you a broad overview. So here we're just going to create a task here, and we're just going to title it test right now, and we're going to title this test details so that we can actually go over and see inside of Planner what's going on. Now notice here this reference link ID. Now I'm just going to double click on it and hit copy. That was not auto-generated. I've created tasks for this meeting, this example that we're using already, and so I put in a unique ID. Now I use the date, the day, the month, the year, and the time. That's how I kind of generate these unique IDs. Whatever works for you is fine. But you see right here, that's what we're looking for right here, this meeting ID. Now, why would I do that? Because when I look inside of my Notes and Actions application, I can quickly search for any of these variables. So I could search for right here, Planner link, and go into Planner and find all of the tasks that I have associated with that. Or go into my Notes and Actions app and just search for this and see what tasks have been generated. Now on the lower part of the screen here, although it's blanked out for your view, you can see the tasks, and the task names are listed there, the dates that those tasks were generated, and then what the task, just briefly what it was that was generated. Now this gives me a great reference point, so when I'm in a meeting kind of doing things, I don't have to worry about whether I'm duplicating a task. If I feel like I've already done that task once, I use the search bar here and I search down through these tasks to see if I've already created it. Now this search, this is a gallery here at the bottom, and this is a form here at the top. So we're using two types of controls within PowerApps, the form and the gallery to find our information. Once we're done, we're going to go ahead and hit save. Now, once we hit save, it's going to return us back to the meeting again, and we're going to continue on our way, and we're creating tasks as we go. Now, for some reason, your meeting is too busy to click on this and create the task. If that's too much, I create this little thing over here called action items, and I just type in just generically what's needed for that meeting, because a lot of times I have back-to-back meetings, and sometimes the meeting's so intense I can't really generate the task at that time, especially if I'm the one speaking in the meeting. So I just kind of zip it off here, and then when I hit save, you're going to notice here that this 0 is going to turn to a 1, indicating that I have a meeting that I have to go into. What I'm trying to avoid, and the whole purpose of creating all of these subtask areas, is so that I don't have to go back to my meeting notes afterwards and generate the tasks for others to do. I do it right on the fly. They can get to work immediately, and we can move forward. If I have to, then that creates a delay, a day or two sometimes, in me reviewing my meeting notes and generating those tasks. So this is more of an instant thing. Now, are there other ways to do what I've done here? Absolutely. There are probably 10 other ways that other people have done this. This is just an example of how I did it. Take all of the good ideas that you read and listen to from other people and make your own strategy. But this is a way that works for me, and that's why I've done it this way. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So we've generated this task as we just saw. Here we're going to close this out so you can kind of see that click right there. So I'm going to just save that, and all of a sudden notice here that it turned to 1. Here, because it's 1, if I was after the meeting, I would just click on this, and here I would see the meeting notes, as you see here, with the meeting title, the reference ID, and I can see the action items. At this point, I can again click here, and I can go in here, I can copy those action items, for example, and drop them right into the task details and be on my way to creating tasks. So it is still easy to create the tasks after the fact, but if at all possible, I like to do it immediately. So we've spent kind of in a concept mode of describing what goes on and how it gets created. And let me show you just in Planner what was created real quick here for you. Now here I've just gone to my tasks. I can see where the task was assigned. Now I did assign it for yesterday so that it would show up late so we could easily find it. But you can see here, this is a list of the task. So with PowerAutomate, we have the task name, the task description right here that we input, and then the meeting reference ID and the unique ID associated with this task. Again, both of those ideas really designed so that you can find information quickly and easily. Now, if this was a task for me, I would schedule it out and execute, or if it becomes a task for somebody else, I can delegate at that point. And that's all done through PowerAutomate. So let's jump over to PowerAutomate real quick and take a look at what that looks like. Now you'll need to look at your environment and how you want to do this yourself. For me, I create the tasks into SharePoint. So I'm taking the tasks using a form within the PowerApp that I just showed you, and I'm moving that information into SharePoint. And the reason why I move it into SharePoint is because it does simplify the creation of those tasks, and PowerAutomate really likes SharePoint, and PowerApps really likes SharePoint. So it is kind of that common denominator that works really well and makes life a lot easier. So you can see here that I'm saying when a new item is created in this SharePoint site, in this list, do this. And in this case, we're creating a task. And you can see the text that's found within the task here. And I've gone ahead and just referenced that. And again, see other videos for that. But I'm pulling dates and information. You can see the SharePoint symbol there directly from there. And I'm assigning specific user IDs to that as well. So it becomes very easy and very repeatable. Now, when it comes to the details within the task, I can just simply update the details. I don't have to do a conversion here from HTML, which would typically be something you would do if you would receive an email and you want to convert it into a task. I don't have to do any of that because I'm already in SharePoint. So here I'm just looking for the unique ID here in Planner. I'm pumping this data right into SharePoint. I can put whatever I want here, by the way, and it makes life really, really easy. So let's go back to PowerApps and take a look at some of the details here that might be helpful for you. First of all, when we come into this area, notice that I have multiple screens here. Each one of the screens has the same menu bar. Again, I want to emphasize that there are many ways to do this. This is the way I do it. It's very logical and simple, not overly complex. So you can make this more complicated. This is just the way I've chosen to do it for this video so that you can see, even if you're not real experienced, you can do this. This is not that tough. So let's take a look and see how I actually did that. If you click here on task only, this is the area I'm at. Notice when I expand this, I've got everything sitting in groups. So the key here is I like to name my buttons, okay, and everything that I'm working with, I like to name. Okay, so this is the form, the gallery. I like to give them all unique names so that I can find things. They're not all of them. You can see these labels aren't named, but generally speaking, I like to name them. And then I like to group them. And the reason why I group them is because with pop-ups, it's really beneficial to have everything in a group. It makes life a lot easier. So here, if I go down to visible, so if I click on here and go to visible, do you see how it says F2? So I'm dealing with this button right here, F2's button. Okay? And I want to make sure that this is everything that I need it to be. So if I say F2 here, that means that it's just going to show up when F2 equals true. So let me show you what that means. If I hit true here, notice now I'm seeing F2. So this is the pop-up. So I can adjust the pop-up, do everything I want to do, and you can see that right here. If I go into F2, I click on that gallery. Do you see the gallery right here? Right down here? See how it's highlighted? These are just fields within the gallery. And notice I've called the gallery over here as a data source. Now if I click on the form, notice the form there? See, I've called out the data source, and that data source happens to be a SharePoint environment. And you can connect those here in your data sources. See other videos. If you're not tracking here, you're going to need to look at some other videos. Let's take a look here and see what we have within here. This is pretty simple, right? There's not much to this group. We got everything that we need. We have the gallery here. We're sorting. Okay, so there's your sort command that you're using. And then here, we're calling that data source. And I don't think there's anything really else in here. It's pretty simple to follow along. Now, where do we set the variables? So F2, when we look at this button, for example, notice now I'm in this group, task buttons. And notice all of the buttons here. F2 is right here. Okay, and I click on it. You can see the image. We don't want that. What happens when I select it? Let's go to on select. And now notice what happens in this environment. Notice here that you have all of these false trues, and we're setting these variables. Notice that all of the variables are set to false, except for F2, which is set to true. So that means when I click on this, it's going to automatically turn visibility to true, meaning that it's going to display the pop-up as we see it represented here, right? Once we finish and we hit save, let's look at that save button here. When we select it, on select, notice here, we're updating the form and we're just setting that to false so that the pop-up goes away. And it's literally that easy. Notice here, the cancel button, we're just setting that variable that visible, this is the variable F2 right here, we're setting it to false, and that's the visibility of this whole group. So we're going to go here to this visibility. Notice it says that true. We're just going to set that to F2, and now it goes away. And so when we run this, so you notice here, we're going to hit F2, boom, it shows up. Why? Because when we hit that, it turned the variable set F2 to true. Now when we click on this, it's setting it to false. We can do that all day long. I think you get the idea. So using these pop-ups, now I can go through and click on anything that I want and see all of, be able to adjust things, do whatever I need to do within my environment. Okay, so pretty simple, right? Now, why do we have all of those things? And this is the last thing we're going to cover here. Let's cancel out here. Did you notice when I was flipping around how I'm not collecting the boxes, right? I'm not, all of these are pop-ups. I'm closing the other pop-ups at the same time that I'm opening the one that I've selected. So here, if we go back to on select, whoops. Go back to on select for that button. Remember, I'm going in here and I'm just, see if I can get this here. Let's format this real quick. Whoops. So we'll go to on select here. Whoops, what did I do? I clicked off of it. All right, let's go back to F2. Pull this down a little. We're going to hit format the text. It makes it a little easier to read. Do you see all of this? I'm setting these all to false. That's because what I want to do is I only want to focus on the one that I need, right, which is F2, and I want to close all the other ones. In the event that any of them came open, I want to just reset them back to false so they close. Very, very simple. So that is how you can run a pop-up environment very easily and have all of this functionality right there on the screen. And as you saw in my example, I use it when I'm doing meeting notes. It makes working with tasks and assigning tasks out that much easier. But you figure out what works for you and then adjust the content to meet your needs.